All right. So it is noon and I am going to get started. So I want to greet you today, welcome you for joining me if you're here or if you see this on the replay later. Uh, Hello. My name is Andrea Mai, and I wrote a book based on my experiences with anxiety a few years ago. I had been dealing with really debilitating chronic anxiety on a daily basis for a period of about a year and a half, 2 years. And uh, this was kind of a surprise to me because I was a pretty seasoned meditator. I had been meditating for at least 5 or 6 years at that point. And I just could not find a way out of my anxiety. And what happened was one day I woke up in the middle of the night and had this just massive panic attack. And I thought, okay, what do you know? What are your tools, Andrea? And do you how do you apply them? There's got to be some way to get through this and take this anxiety down. And so I proceeded to use the tools that I had been trained in and apply them directly inside of the anxiety attack, the panic attack. I applied meditation directly to the anxiety attack. I applied the tools I had for working with my body directly to it. And I don't know why I had not thought of that before. You know, I would be sitting meditation and just just suffer through the anxiety, thinking, oh, I need to stop my mind, or oh, I need to um, just ignore this. Just there's no merit to what's happening here and I should be able to stop it. But just thinking that I could didn't. It was really when I took the tools and used them together. Uh, and that really began the process of taking anxiety and dismantling it, unwinding it. Um, so that's a little bit about me. I wrote the book about a year after I had had my last round of dealing with anxiety. I wanted to really make sure that it was gone. And when I say gone, I I want to clarify a couple of things. It's not to say that there was never any stress or worry in my life, and there still is today to some degree. Um, but anxiety was when it ran rampant, when it took over my body and my mind and became sort of this obsessive habitual pattern. Um, but what I learned to do was break the the connection between the physical experience and the stories that I was weaving. Um, our minds, when we hear the word mind, often we think of our thinking brain, which is a whole different instrument than our mind or our heart mind, as identified in a lot of uh, Buddhist and philosophic uh, teachings. So there is a difference. And so I was learning to break the stories that were spinning out of control in my thinking brain with the physical sensation that was happening in my body. And that's what I want to show with you how to do today. So if you're joining me right now, if you want to go ahead and say hello in the chat box below, I would love to see who's joining us today. Um, if you don't want to chat, that's totally cool. um, so today, what I'm going to teach you are the two main practices that I used in combination with each other. It's actually 3 practices. When I set up the landing page for this webinar, I was thinking, "Oh, it's one practice. It's my meditation practice." But in reality, it's 3 different practices, and I write about each of those independently in Unwinding Anxiety, Free Your Mind, Get Your Life Back, which is the book that I wrote about how I did all of this. Um, there are a lot of other methods and practices and techniques that you can implement as well. And those really accentuate, complement, and amplify what the benefit of these particular ones that I'm going to share with you today. So, um, they those techniques are really working with loving kindness and compassion, self-care, um, for your body and for your mind, and some other things, and we'll get into that a little later. So I used really simple meditation, shamatha meditation, calm or peaceful abiding, and blended that with a combination of body scanning and releasing tension. Um, One of the most difficult symptoms, physical symptoms that I experienced was I couldn't draw a deep breath for 2 years. It's the first place that gets affected in my body was this tight, tight chest. And there have been times, even since working with this, where uh, a time of worry tightened my chest. And I could see that, oh, it wanted to go towards spinning stories around that physical symptom. But I was able to break that before it even began by reapplying these techniques. So, what we're going to start with is our mindset. Um, you may have experience with meditation, you may not. You may have a contemplative, instinct, and it may be all new to you, and that's okay. So, where we're beginning today is by really taking on this mindset of exploration, of being willing to explore, to notice, and to observe uh, our physical, mental, and uh, sort of the experience of being in the room or the elements, our environmental influence. So, the tools that you need to use these practices are curiosity, uh, being curious enough, wanting to get to know your heart mind, wanting to understand your thinking brain, and getting to know your body and its responses. Um, these are all separate components that make up your life experience. And being really curious about them instead of simply accepting them for whatever they are. That is really critical to all of this work. And then willingness to explore your experience of vulnerability, being vulnerable to yourself, being open is another word. Vulnerability may feel like weakness, but in reality, it's extremely strong, to just open further and further and further to the experience that you're sitting with. Um, Vulnerability uh, is where anxiety often takes root. When we're uncomfortable or we're downright afraid, uh, of feeling vulnerable, of feeling uncertain, groundless. not knowing what the outcome is going to be. In reality, we never know what the outcome is going to be, but sometimes we weave these stories that make an outcome certain, and usually it's a negative outcome, which is what causes the anxiety. Um, I should state I'm not a mental health professional. I am a very seasoned meditator and mindfulness teacher. I have been working with this material most of my life. I, in some form or another, across multiple traditions, I started formal sitting meditation practice in 2005, but I've been studying and practicing very diligently. I spent 5 years in an esoteric Christian tradition studying to be a pastor. I've worked with this material. I'm a guide, a meditation guide in the tradition that I am in. And so I have lived this experience and I've worked with it, and this is the work I'm most passionate about, and that's why I want to help you in whatever way I can today. I want this to benefit you. Um, so the third tool that you're going to need, you don't need it, but it is incredibly helpful, is a journal. And a journal is going to help you track your progress through this experience and through these explorations. Um, it's going to give you a place to dump it all out, get it all out of you, get the stories out of you. I write a lot about journaling and the whys and the effects and how it's helpful in the book Unwinding Anxiety. I write a lot about it on my blog mindfuljournal.net, and I've been journaling since forever, since I was 12 years old, and I am 46 right now. So that's a very long time. And it has gotten me through everything. But the reason it has is because of my curiosity and willingness. And I believe you have that in you too. So I want to get started. Um, know that there is work we can do to trace back to the beginning or the trigger of anxiety. But before you know the cause, even before you have know the cause, you can begin to have relief. You don't have to get to ground zero of the reason behind it, the reason you're feeling it, in order to have relief. You can start to feel that very quickly. Every effort that you make, every time you apply these practices, it's like letting a little steam off, letting a little pressure off the pressure cooker. So take a sip, and then we're going to move on to the next thing. And if you have questions during this, feel free to pop them into the chat box, and we'll have a uh, time to answer those later on. So, I want to also start by letting you know that it's really crucial to be gentle with yourself. We are so self-critical, self-judgmental. We just get very harsh with ourselves. We feel like, why can't I stop this? Why? And we play a game of what if. Um, so adopting an attitude, even if it's just for today, but I encourage you to work on this over and over again with every breath you take, of just incredible gentleness and a sense of not judging yourself. You start there and it starts to roll out to others, and that's a subject for a whole other webinar. Um, but please know that it is good to be gentle with yourself, especially when you're dealing with anxiety and painful emotional and physical experiences. So, the number one key to all of this is the ability to notice and observe and to allow. Um, we're going to start with our body. And so, what I'm going to do is invite you to take your seat. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in a chair, if you're sitting on your sofa, if you're on the floor, if you're on a cushion, if you're lying down. All of these are perfectly fine places to work with these practices. And we're going to begin with a body scan. And so the body scan is very simple. It's just like it sounds. We're going to take a moment, about a minute, to just scan our body from the bottom of our feet to the top of our head, going body part by body part, and notice where there's tension and where there's softness and where there's tightness, all the different things, all the different physical experiences you might be having. So you're going to begin by taking your seat, taking a breath. You can close your eyes and begin at the bottoms of your feet. Slowly move your toes, move up to your ankles, roll them for a moment. Turn your mind to the sensation in your calves and shins. Feel your knees, all the muscles connecting, upper leg to lower leg. Let your mind travel up to your thighs and hamstrings, and further up into your hips and your groin area. Notice any tightness, any discomfort, or if you're feeling very loose, notice that. We're not commenting or judging any of these experiences, simply acknowledging them, like a little nod, a little, hey, I see you. Move to your abdomen. What are your experiences going on in your belly? Notice, just notice. No need to create any story. Notice up into your chest, your breastbone area. Take a nice deep breath and let it out. Notice your shoulders. Allow them to drop. If they're bunched up around your ears, just let them continue to soften. Same for your back. Notice it. Make a little micro adjustment if you need. Drop your head down just ever so gently towards the front if you are able, and kind of drop away any tension in your neck. Lift your head back up. We're not spending too long on this. And then notice the muscles in your face, your jaw. Move your jaw ever so slightly. Roll your lips and your tongue. Spread your mouth open and kind of feel that. Feel where there's any tightness. And then move up further into your brow and forehead area, your upper cheeks, kind of along your sinus cavities, muscles by your ears. Just breathe in and exhale. And let all that tension go. Now, I want you to return to any of those areas that were very tight or bunched up or constricted feeling. And I want you to, with your mind, in your mind's eye, just see as you inhale and exhale air moving in and out of them, visualizing those places softening and expanding, just allowing all the care and the tension to drop away. If you're feeling a shortness of breath, a gentle massage of your breastbone or your chest, your heart area, simply laying your hand upon any of the areas that feel tight. As I'm doing this, I'm noticing how tight my sinus cavities feel, the spot in my back that I can't quite reach, but overall feeling relaxed, continually reminding myself to drop my shoulders and just just be with it. And so using that technique of going to the areas that are tight and tense and sending them a gradual expansion and softening, a gentling, that energy starts to work on the body. Slow breaths in and out, and we work with that. So that's one element of what we are doing today. And then we begin with noticing the mind and what it is doing, whether it's stirring things up or it's spacing out or it's simply present and aware. Um, the instruction that I'm giving you is a combination of shamatha, which is peaceful or calm abiding, with a little bit of working in the body tension release and the body scan. So I'm going to begin to give you that experience. Um, Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them into the chat box below the screen. Okay, so for for seated meditation, you can do this again in a chair. If you're in a chair, you want to bring your back up off the back of the chair and hold yourself in a gentle upright position. If you're seated on a meditation cushion, same thing. You want to settle your hips into the cushion, grounding yourself with with essentially with the earth. If you're lying down, you want to lay flat, bend your knees a little if you need to. Just be comfortable and still. Again, if you're on a cushion, you want your knees hopefully lower than your hips, slightly, or even with your hips. This is fine. And so we sit with a sense of uprightness, a sense of dignity. And maybe this is hard for you to imagine, but for this instance, just allow it. What does it mean to be upright and dignified? Not uptight, not too tight. We also don't want to be too loose. We don't want to be sloppy in our positioning of our body and our spirit. It all works together. And so you can do this with your eyes closed or your eyes open. I find that, especially with anxiety, it's good to work with what feels good in the moment. No need to stress yourself out about, well, this is how I've always done it. Um, I've worked with both open eyed and closed eye techniques, and it's really in working with whatever's working best for you for that session. So I invite you to imagine the natural curves of your spine. They're strong, the muscles holding you upright, supporting you. Drop your shoulders, soften your facial muscles. If it helps to keep your facial muscles softened, you may want to open your mouth slightly. You can place the tip of your tongue on your upper palate behind your front teeth. This helps with breath in and out. Allow your natural breath to come in and out. We're not working with a particular breathing pattern right now. We're just inhale and exhale. If it helps, take a couple, two or three deep centered breaths, grounding breaths at the beginning. Notice the breath moving through your whole body. Wherever there's tightness, wherever you're distracted by the tightness or discomfort, just send some focus of attention to that spot for just a flash. Allow it to soften, encourage it to soften, and then come back to the breath. And we work with these touch points, the breath, the body, the fullness of your breathing body, sinking into it. As thoughts are arising, make a decision, make a choice. It's very subtle. It's just a small shift and return to the breath. And by returning to the breath, you're training the mind. You're beginning to teach your mind that it does not control you and that you don't have to succumb to whatever it is throwing out there. You're training the thinking brain that it is not in charge. That may frighten you a little, and that's okay. Just go with it. And as you're allowing breath in and out, spend some time hanging out in the gap between the in and out breath. And just let yourself dissolve on the out breath. Let all of your cares and worries dissolve on the out breath. And breathe in and feel light and energy, good light and energy filling you. And again, continuing to work with the mind. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. Allow the thoughts to pass by like a ship in the river, like a cloud in the sky when you're laying out in the yard and you are watching the clouds roll by. Just notice them, appreciate them for whatever they are, and let them continue on their way. It isn't about the quality of your thoughts. It's not about the thoughts at all, actually. It's about the practice of returning to the breath, returning to working with the body, making those small adjustments, dropping the shoulders, relaxing the face, breathing deeper into the tight chest. And so, noticing the physical sensations, we begin to allow them to just be physical. If your chest is tight or your back is tight, those are just muscles. And if your pulse is racing, notice it. Notice it for just what it is, with no storyline, no spinning mind connecting to it. Just notice the pulse. Oh, it's the pulse. That's interesting. I wonder why it does that. That's interesting that the muscles are tight. Maybe I can breathe in and soften them. Return to the breath over and over, staying with it. Returning when you notice you're distracted. Doing this in the midst of anxiety or a panic attack, you can apply these techniques very directly for as long as it takes, whether it's a minute or two or half an hour. Just working with this will really start to bring down the high pain involved in the anxiety or the panic. And if you practice this technique when you're already calm, when you're feeling a sense of calm, um, and you're not in a heightened state, that is really beautiful, um, foundation building for when you are in the midst of an anxiety attack. And it's not just about the act of the calm abiding meditation. It's not just about returning to the breath, although that is part of it. The key to really dismantling the anxiety is noticing the experience of the body and then noticing the experience of the mind. Oh, those are thoughts. They're just thoughts. They're just thoughts, just like my blood is pulsing and moving in my body, just like oxygen is coming into me. They're just an experience, and there's no weight to them. So, that is the meditation experience. Um, I don't know if anyone has any questions. Um, I'll give it just a moment to see if there are any questions. And what I want to say is, I just can't encourage you strongly enough to really be gentle with yourself through all of this. Um, it's such a harsh experience when you feel like your thoughts have control and you're scared. You're scared of some particular outcome. And I I can't tell you how, your mind, but I can tell you that everything I ever imagined as the worst outcome, it never happened. So I spent a lot of time worrying about things in the future that never came to pass. I never, and even if they had, that's a whole nother session as well. The idea of the worst case scenario and how you deal with the worst case scenario. Um, but all right, so there are some other methods and practices that I outline in Unwinding Anxiety, Free Your Mind, Get Your Life Back. These are the alternate tools that really worked together with this and gave me um, a full experience of a healthy mind, body, and spirit. These included walking meditation, and loving kindness and compassion practices, and these were super helpful. I was able to apply them to myself, which is extremely helpful, and then learning how to generate those for others, to send loving kindness and compassion out into the world, out into the cosmos, and really just allowing yourself to step out of the way um, and experience that really big open heart. There were contemplations. I have a couple that I've reflected on over the years that have always helped me, and I shared those in the book. Um, And finally, how to help and work with your body instead of against your body. Because your body, you know, eh, there's a lot of science around anxiety. There's all sorts of hormones and chemical reactions and responses inside the body. And really taking care of your body through your diet, through what you're consuming or not consuming. I used to be a really heavy drinker, and I found that that just made things so much worse. Um, and so I had to really cut that back, and at times completely stop drinking. um, Now I might have one or two drinks a week, and even then, it's I check in with my body. I check in with my body. I do it for the food I eat, and I write about how to do that in the book. Um, Sleep, how to get better sleep, what to do when you're woken up by anxiety and panic, um, and balancing your energy, whether you're an introvert, an ambivert, or an extrovert. It's really critical to self care, to um, be aware. And all of this is awareness. All of these tools lead to this beautiful awareness, and you will be really happy and surprised, I think, by what awareness brings into your life. We instead of numbing out, instead of trying to instead of trying to drown out the pain with a cocktail or five, or trying to just push it all away, you can get under it and you can take it apart. And suddenly it's just like the clouds. The clouds, they look like this dragon in the sky, and the wind keeps moving, and they dissolve and they spread and they change. And that's exactly what those thoughts that you're having can do. They can just dissolve, and you can unwind this painful experience. So, all right. Well, there we go. All right. So that's what I have for you today. Doesn't appear to be any questions, so that's cool. I am um I if you look on the website below the screen, there is a list of the offerings that are available to you, where you can pick up Unwinding Anxiety if that would be helpful to you to have a copy. Um, I've created versions for Amazon, Kindle, and there's a paperback as well. And then I created a digital download that includes a PDF of Unwinding Anxiety, as well as two worksheets. One is a sleep well log, and the other is a worksheet and journal, that you can take these and make copies of them and put them in a binder and use them to gauge your practice with the different methods outlined in the book. So you can track, hey, um, today I did a compassion practice and I did a body scan. And, you can work through daily, um, making note of what you did, where you are in the day, like what your experience is with mind, body, and spirit, and then also, um, it, basically there's a page, so there's 2 pages per day, a page to make notes and journal a little bit about what you're dealing with that day and the progress that you're making, because this will benefit you. This will help, like, give you such an incredible foundation for a happy and healthy life. My life has I've gone through all sorts of things since then, but I can tell you absolutely truthfully that I've not had further anxiety attacks or panic attacks, and that my general sense of well-being is so good. And I wish that for you. So, again, if you want to get a copy of the book, just scroll down on the screen and find whichever option works best for you. With the digital download, feel free to share that with whoever you know that would benefit from it. There is also, if you just want the worksheets, there is an option for that as well. So, all that to say, I wish you the best. I hope that a happy, healthy heart and mind are the experience you have. And I am going to say goodbye. Thank you for joining me.